And if we can have the roll call.
Mr. Bones?
Here.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Ms. Rossi? Here. Ms. Hanson?
Here.
Mr. Talmadge?
Here.
Okay, and you have before you the minutes of the special meeting, March 21st. I hope you've had a chance to read them, and do we have a motion for approval? Are there any questions? If there are no questions, we can have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The next item is the executive order regarding the gubernatorial appointment for a replacement for Mr. Soleil. That is in the governor's hands, and you have a copy of the executive order. And there's nothing, they're requesting suggestions. Is that what this is for?
This is just a questionnaire. If you have anyone who lives in the west section of our district, if they would like to apply, they may either receive the questionnaire online, or we have extra copies up here. At the present time, there's one applicant as of yesterday, and in talking with the governor's office, it's my understanding it may be as long as September, October, November before the governor makes the appointment.
Okay. So if any of you know someone that might be interested in serving on the board, please fill out one of those forms. So we don't have an action there, and we have the next item of business is introduction of Dave Otadi. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah.
Otadi, who is the new CEO for Florida Hospital Waterman.
Good afternoon.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today and get to know you. My name is David Otadi. I'm the new CEO for Florida Hospital Waterman. I've been part of Adventist Health System now for about 17 years, and it's good to transition and come over here to this beautiful community and be part of this community. I want to thank each and every one of you for the work that you do here on the board, and important work in helping our community continue to help the indigent in this manner. And truly do appreciate it. I look forward to working with each and every one of you in the future. I would love to take all your questions, and those folks in the back know all the answers. As I'm still getting new and getting used to the role that I have today, so I do appreciate that. I just wanted to come and introduce myself to you.
Well, we welcome you, and you certainly have a big responsibility on your shoulders. Welcome to Lake County. Are there any questions? Anyone?
Good luck.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, and we look forward to working with you.
Likewise.
Thanks. Next item of business is discussion regarding the Agency for Healthcare Administration credit to the Leesburg Regional Medical Center. Phil Braun.
Good evening. I'm Phil Braun, General Counsel for Leesburg Regional Medical Center. I think you've got in your packet, and I apologize. Let me apologize for why this came up in the last minute. Was as with working with the state and with AHCA, things come to us at the last minute, and we just found out this week that confirmed that this credit was coming. As you'll recall, I think it was 2 meetings ago, I came and spoke to the board to let you know about the first part of this credit. This is actually the second half of that credit. The first part of that credit was about $1.4 million, and we talked about putting, and were able to put that in a letter of agreement with the state for LIP program to continue to leverage that money. Unfortunately, because they held back a portion of that total credit that they were giving us until they did another reconciliation. They've done that reconciliation, as I said, this week we found that out, and so they are releasing another, and the number that I now have, that I got today, is $542,601. So that will be the credit that will show up on this fourth quarter invoice that because of the letters of agreement that you were in. And the only way to get that credit back, and this credit is from previous letters of agreement that were sent up to the state on our behalf, that were committed to LRMC and sent up. So with that, you will have $542,601 credit that that credit, instead of being paid out to LRMC, is to be held until we get the state to tell us what the amounts of the new letters of agreements for 13-14, which should be coming, I think maybe in August. I think I have a date here. But we know that they're always a little delayed up there in the state. But we're hoping before the September meetings you'll have those numbers, and we'll be able to assess whether we need to use that amount in addition to whatever applications were awarded in September to, again, send out money to the state and leverage our dollars like we have done for the past couple of years.
Other questions? I'm sure there probably are, and Pat, you may have some comments on your.
Yeah, let me kind of try to see what's going to happen. The state has not yet invoiced us for this year's letter of agreement fourth quarter. When they do, the amount they want us to send up is going to be the $542,601 less than what we had agreed to. This credit is not from this fiscal year. I'm not even sure it's from the prior fiscal year. It's kind of a combination of several years back when we were under the old legislation. So what's going to happen at September 30th is the district will have $542,000 in our accounts that we have not written checks for to send up. We could just write $542,000 check to LRMC at September 30th and they have it. What they would like to do is for us to assign that money, because and the reason it's coming back to the district is because the district sent it in the first place, even though it was for their benefit. Assign it, so when we have the letters of agreement for the 13-14 year, and I'm just going to make up a number. Let's say we say, okay, we're going to send $1 million up for LRMC in our letters of agreement. Instead, we would then do the letters of agreement for $1,542,000 because they want to be able to leverage that money. They want to get the match back on it. If we just write the check to them for the $542,000, they lose out on the match.
Which they haven't received at this point.
Right, correct. Does that explain it a little more how it's going to work accounting terms? So it isn't costing the district anything.
Right, no additional, we're not asking you to spend any additional dollars that you haven't already allocated.
I had thought, when you first talked to us about this, I thought this was a mistake on the district's part. On the state's part, that they had miscalculated the percentage that they were supposed to pay on the money?
Yes, it is in a way a mistake on the state part, because they do the calculations, and they did ask that, or they did approve sending that much money up, and what happens is they go back and they redo their books and they figure out that they asked for too much. And if they hadn't asked for that much, we would have back then just gone ahead and kept the money, and it would have been paid out to LRMC at that time. But because they were able to, because they routinely do that, and I think from the state's perspective, for them, it's much easier to take too much and have us come back and get it than it is for them to take too little and ask us for it back. I mean, that's the dilemma they're in. So they over-calculate, and it's not an unusual problem, and it will probably happen again.
I guess my confusion is, once the agreement is signed, don't they invoice us for those amounts that are on the agreement?
Correct. They're basically auditing what they did a year ago and realizing that they were wrong, and now they're refunding. That's what they're doing.
See, what happens is the state calculates an amount that they think there's some matching funds they're going to be able to meet. We send that much money up with the letters of agreement. Then when they go through the reconciliation, they realize, whoops, no, we overestimated. Now, here's money you sent, and rather than them being able to direct it to the hospital, they have to send it back to the district, because even though it's
old money, and it was for LRMC's benefit. So what we're asking tonight is just that in September, and as Phil said, if they had known that in the year that it happened, we would have written a check for 542 to LRMC and cleared the books. So what we've got out there is this $542,000 that's going to stay in the district's checkbook at the end of September 30th. That it's just never funded its way to where it was supposed to go a year or two ago. And so in planning our budget, that will be part of our carry forward. And once you approve the 13-14 budget, like I said, if you approved $1 million allocation to LRMC, the budget will actually show $1,542,000 because we're going to use up this assigned carry forward balance.
I was wondering, did this happen during the 11-12?
Yeah, and basically in 11 and 12, what happens is the district, the then district, under the legislation, basically that money is committed to LRMC and to WARN. What we do is turn around under those rules and we say, we need you to send that money that is owed to us to the state. Mm-hmm. And the problem is we have to try to guess how much money that is based on what the state tells us. Now, sometimes in the past, and that hasn't happened in a while, usually we have money left over regardless of what the state sends. So we get that money directly. There's usually a small portion. In the case of that year, we used all of it to send up, and so there was none. So, but again, it is a mistake that the state asked for more money than they should.
Okay, because I know in that year, when they sent the original agreements, they were pretty high. And then later on, we talked about it and said, well, at that time, Ken was chairman, and he had said he was going to go ahead and sign the agreement, but it was going to be reduced down to a certain amount. So I was wondering if there was a confusion there, that the state actually invoiced us for the original amount that they had put on the agreement.
It could have been. I mean, there's a lot of calculations that go into that number, and unfortunately, they estimate certain things into those calculations, such as patient days and things like that. And if they're off with their estimates, and the number's going to get, it could go the other way too. Yeah. It just happened to be that it went this way, but it could have gone the other way as well.
Yeah. I think the biggest concern is to make sure that the money is owed to us, and that they're not going to come back at some later date and say, we made a mistake now, you owe us the money.
Right. No, and they won't do that. This will close this year's reconciliation. Had it gone the other way around, we would have made the district whole, or we would have paid the state directly, so you wouldn't have had any dealings with them. Actually, is what would happen.
And you haven't received the match for those dollars.
Well, the way the match. We will receive, when this fourth quarter payment goes on the LIT program, we will receive the match, and that comes as a direct payment. The other ones actually come in the form of a Medicaid remittance, and is based on patient visits. So it comes back to us over time. And we have gotten that rate that we used to pay that, but we paid too much for that rate, is basically what happened.
Okay. Meredith, do you have anything you want to say? No. Are there any other questions? I think you've probably all seen this before. So at this point, do we need a motion to add it to the budget?
Yes.
Pat?
What I'd like is a motion to assign this credit balance to LRMC, and then show it as an additional distribution in next year's budget.
Okay. All right, if there are no other questions, do we have a motion to that effect?
Sure, I can make a motion that we assign approximately $542,600
of the money, and that we hold the money for LRMC until such time that we can allocate it appropriately. Is that formal enough or informal enough?
That sounds good. Okay. Do we have a second? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for pulling that together. Okay, Tad, you have discussion?
Yeah, I have a
Quarterly audit?
couple of things. The way the property tax cycle works, by the end of this month, I have to fill out a form, turn it into the tax collector on what we think our proposed millage is. So these forms are going in at 1 mil because till September, we won't really have final numbers and have that discussion. So I just want to, for public awareness and your awareness, when you get your trim notice, you're going to see this proposed millage at 1 mil. That first meeting in September, we'll have discussions then because each provider will need to submit their request for the next year and begin to tweak that budget, and then at that discussion you can actually either leave it at 1 mil, vote it down or up. You can't vote it up, but so I just wanted you to know why the 1 mil is going out on these forms, because until y'all vote on the millage rate, I can't just assign any other number to them.
And that just limits, you just can't go above that 1 mil when you do the budget. You can go less, but you can't go.
Correct. Yeah, because your roll, the maximum, if you didn't have that cap, the maximum millage that you could do is 1.7, given the property right now. So even at the 1, you're almost half what you could do with all these formats. So that's more just for your benefit. So people ask you, why is it 1 mil? Why is that showing up? It's I just don't have any alternative on these July filings. The second thing I needed to bring up is, last year you approved a 1-year engagement for the audit. I sent an email to Mr. Ross to see if he was still interested in doing it, given the nature of the beast now and the additional compliance work and all. He called me about 4:30 this afternoon and said he would still be interested in doing an extension, and the price for each year for 3 years would be $9,920, which is about a $4,000 increase, but there's a lot more compliance work that has to be done. If you want to extend your contract with him, then by the meeting in September, he will bring up an engagement letter. And he did say he would stick with the $9,920 fee each of the 3 years. So those 3 years it would not go up.
Our commitment would be for 3 years.
Correct.
Not an option every year.
Correct. Yeah, normally that's even our firm, we do the 3-year contract so that you've got some continuity, and those RFPs are expensive. And then the last time we did one, we only had the 2 responses too. So I just need to know if you want, you can actually approve the engagement letter when he brings it, but if you think that you want him to go ahead and prepare that.
What's the feelings of the board?
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
I've got a good firm doing a good job.
And the same with the 1 mil? No more than that? No, you can't go more than that, if you said it. So you don't need a motion today, you just wanted to bring for information. Okay. There are no questions on that? Okay, and then the next item item is there any other matter necessary to achieve the foregoing, aforementioned goals? Oh, okay, yes, I'm sorry.
Can't hear you.
The presentation on the third quarterly audit.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Harlan Allison from Moore Stevens Salt Lakes. I think you've all received the draft, not draft, you've received the audit for the quarter ended March. And if I bring your attention to page 3, there's a table there that lists the various providers and the amounts due to them for the quarter. Just give a little background explanation. There was some Medicaid retraction, which is where previously submitted claims in the last 2 quarters that for whatever reason were because the hospitals don't give up on charity care right away. They try real hard to get those folks qualified for Medicaid, and where they've been successful and subsequently actually received reimbursement from Medicaid, we have, because they've already gotten that in the previous quarter, that's listed as a retraction. So it's a reduction from their submitted claim to come up to the final amount. I think that's all that I really need to point out on the schedule. But I do have something else that I wanted to address with the commission. District here is you were handed a spreadsheet that identifies the first 3 columns on the spreadsheet. You know, it's by provider. The first 3 columns identify what those providers have submitted and have been allowed claims for the quarters ended September, December, and March. Let's go ahead and disregard the September 2012 column because that's not the current year budget. So if we look at the allowed to date, we have a total of $4,336,475, and the budget for the district is $8,710,885. So we're approximately on track in total to hit our budgeted amount. If we take the projections, right, which are a simple average of the last 2 quarters, and if each of the providers hits the average of the last 2 quarters for the next 2 quarters, we will, in total, be within 1% of the budgeted expenditures for the providers. And that works out great, except that I do want to point out that the 2 hospitals, the first 2 rows on the spreadsheet, one is looks like if things work out will be over their contracted amount, and the other one is going to be under their contracted amount by significant dollars, and the dollars do sort of net out, so the hospitals in total come out pretty close, but one's over and one's under. Leesburg's over, Florida Hospital Waterman's going to be under. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention to begin thinking about how that might impact the budget, and also to encourage Florida Hospital Waterman to submit as much as they can at this point. You know, I know it's been a lot of heavy lifting to get the documentation ready to be audited, and so I do want to bring that to your attention. Begin to think about. Another thing that I wanted to ask sort of permission for is something that I'm going to call Medicaid exhausted, where a Medicaid recipient has, you know, there's actually an out-of-pocket, there's a maximum amount that Medicaid will pay for their care. And once they reach that amount, then even Medicaid, which is the last payer won't pay anymore. And at that point, they truly become charity care. And LRMC submitted, they didn't put it in their submission, but they gave it to us for information purposes to ask, hey, is there any way that we can get paid for these without having to go through that administrative burden of giving you the normal requirements of documentation that we do for everybody else. And it actually seems like a reasonable request to me because this is coming from the list of claims, of Medicaid exhausted claims, is coming from remittance advices from Medicaid saying this patient has exceeded their limit, we can't pay anymore. And if they've gotten that, then as long as they're a resident of the district, and we can verify that, I don't know that we need to go into the additional documentation of their assets and income and everything because they were already qualified for Medicaid. If you're following my line of thought, that perhaps we can just take a shortcut approach. And the real shortcut approach that I'm asking for permission on is calculating the lower of cost or Medicare, which is what the hospital would receive. Cost, let's not even talk about that because Medicare is going to be lower than cost. And to calculate what Medicare would have paid for that claim is complicated in a couple of ways. One, the actual date that they ran out of Medicaid or exceeded their Medicaid maximum could have been in the middle of an episode. And so figuring that out and splitting that middle, tagging that middle of episode to look it up on a Medicare fee screen is going to be complicated in some respects because it means digging into additional electronic medical records. The easy approach to doing it is to use the ratio of Medicare to total allowed claims for the last 2 quarters. We have 6 months worth of experience now where we've tested a large number of claims from LRMC, and if we use the average rate, the average ratio of Medicare payment for those DRGs, for those episodes, we get a pretty consistent rate, and it's within expected norms. So what I'd like to do is to be able to say, in this specific example, we have $462,000 of write-offs of Medicaid exhausted that occurred in the 3rd quarter at LRMC. And if I use the ratios that would be expected ratio, that turns into $92,594 of cash that could be claimed by LRMC. And I'm okay with that. As your auditor, I would tell you that, yeah, that's a reasonable way to get to it. It may not be exactly to the penny, but it's going to be plus or minus 5%.
It sounds reasonable. You've already gone through all the documentation, or they have already
I
done
have.
it because of the Medicare.
I have. It's not included in this submission because I wanted to make sure that you all were okay that I'm going to estimate this in a way different than as we've discussed previously.
Is there discussion?
The ones that you have the episode on, you can't differentiate those, can you? I mean, can you pull that out of that segment and look at that? And that's where the problem is, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
Getting that too complicated to do that, or is that?
it's very complicated. Yeah, it is.
That seems like to me to prevent redundancy. It seems very practical. And it's good that you bring that back to us to give us that option. We're saving money. We're being a little more prudent in what we're doing. It certainly seems logical to me.
And Pat, any comment?
Okay. that concludes my report.
Oh, great. Are there any questions of the report?
Can I ask though that we maybe take formal action on that, because it is.
On the audit. Or the other issue?
Yeah, approve the audit and then put some formal action to that. In case somebody trying to stay outside, I mean,
Okay.
just going through the Medicaid process, you fulfill the documentation requirements. And you've already proved their
Indigent.
indigent care.
Mhm.
So let's not do it again, but I think you can put the minutes, you will have official board approval of that.
Can you state that motion as it should be? What
You
should
just did that. For Medicaid exhausted, as long as we can tell the residents of the district that we can apply the Medicare to allowed charges ratio historical to those submitted claims and just use that.
And the facilities, institutions do not have to go through redundant documentation.
Thank you.
All right.
Someone else wants to make that motion.
Pardon?
Someone else needs to make the motion.
Would somebody make that motion? After an individual has exhausted their Medicare funding, and assuming that they are residents of the county, that we allow the charges in those particular hospitals to be based on historical ratios, Medicare ratios.
I hate to be a stickler, but you as chair can't make the motion.
No, I'm not making the
Okay,
motion. I was
okay.
just,
If someone else would make the motion.
If somebody'd like to
I'll
make that
let
motion.
you make the motion.
Thank you.
There was a
Just
second?
saying you can make the motion. I so move. Yeah, move the
Okay,
motion
okay, I
as
so move.
previously described.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Medicaid.
Medicaid.
I'm sorry, Medicaid.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Good catch.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, and now we need a motion to approve the third quarterly audit, the presentation. Do we have a motion to?
Now make a motion to approve the audit as stated.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Okay.
Can we also then have a motion that it's okay to distribute based on the audit report?
Yes, okay. To distribute the report, the funds based on the audit report.
Sorry about that. yeah.
Okay. Do we have a motion to distribute the funds based on the audit?
Make a motion to distribute the funds according to the audit, in accordance with the audit.
And is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, anything else?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do have a question, just anticipating that it was projected payments for next quarter, then the Central Florida Health Alliance, for example, is going to be above, their expenses are going to be above what was budgeted for them. What happens under the contracts that we have? I mean, is that it? Because I think our contract we did back in November says an amount not to exceed X amount of dollars, which is the budgeted amount of $4,603,000. So,
Ready?
yeah.
What will happen is, number one, we'll see where we're falling because they haven't turned in their June numbers yet. So we'll see where we are. But if we have overpaid in one area, then the way the letters of agreement, there'll be just less payment. The legislation talks about that, and in this case, we would just send less money up for, if things held out like this, less money would go up for water. That depends on your budget needs and how you're going to allocate next year. And then sort of gonna be considered already paid in. And then we'll just have to have the discussion on how you wanna allocate. That's why the next meeting in September, all the vendors need to be prepared to present their request so you can begin to make your allocation. The other thing that, because our fiscal year goes through September, we will have a payable on the books at the end of September. As soon as the providers have an idea or can get their numbers over for audit, so we can have a number to kind of begin to work with, we'll know to a payable amount that will go on. But that's kind of how that's going to work out.
One other thing on the spreadsheet to perhaps consider is that LifeStream Primary Care Clinic hasn't really gotten up and running. And you had allocated $135,000 for them. And it looks like LifeStream Behavioral Center is going to exceed their budgeted amount. So I don't know if the clinic can get folded into the behavioral center or not. That's probably a question.
If that's based on the projection, next month, or next quarter, they'll be $104,000 over already.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a good question. Okay, anything else?
Nothing else.
Okay. Bill, did you have no comment? Okay. Is there anything else to come before the board? Any questions, anything that you'd like to bring up? Our next scheduled meetings are, for budget purposes, September 19th at 5:30 and September 26th at 5:30. And public comment, James.
Dan Shokum. I put together a sample spreadsheet of some recommended expanding reports that are included in your audit report. Now, I haven't seen the current one. It sounds like there's more information in it than the one I had, which was ending December 31st. But my question is that the audit report that I look at quarterly, it just listed the amounts paid for that quarter per the provider. And there was no activity analysis, there was no year-to-date analysis, there was no cost per case, and I'm not talking about individual cases, but an average for the individual providers. And so I came up with a format, and I still have more things to add to it, but I'll give you copies to pass around, because one of the things I can't help notice is, many of you know, I go to all the board meetings for the county as well as the school district, and I've been doing it for 6 years plus this group, is that in government entities, they don't seem to ever pay attention to any kind of activity, ratio or cost analysis. And I believe that that's important because you should have more transparency on this number, and that's all I'm talking about is transparency, to show the year-to-date cumulative amounts for the different providers, as well as percentage and a cost figure, which I don't have on there, but there should be some columns for the number of cases. And I talked to the auditor, and he says, yes, they have that information. And then they calculate an average cost per provider per case to show you what the average numbers are that is costing you for these cases. Because before, this has never been brought up. You never had that. And part of the reason for the law that you're operating under is to emphasize competition between providers and to analyze what the costs are for providing services to the indigent. And so that's why I'm bringing that up. And I also really would appreciate if they uploaded these audit reports and other documents to the website, and you mark them draft. It's done in other agencies in this county, and I would think the public should be able to have it even if it says a draft, so that we can provide feedback to the members of the board if there's anything, because you do represent the public, And I think that that is needed. Thank you.
Good point. I'm sure we have all of this information on the year-to-date and the percentages. And then, did you?
A copy to the auditor, did you get a copy?
I don't know if there were.
Did you have enough?
No, you get one.
Okay. Any thoughts on that, Pat? If we could get more information out, and I don't know about on the website ahead of time, because I don't know when we actually receive what we got. That's just an audit. This would be a financial statement, which is very similar.
I'm just proposing that be added to the audit report format.
Okay.
Because he has the current quarterly amounts.
He has the current quarterly amounts, at least in the version I looked at, and what I'm saying is just add that and compare it to what the budgets are, and do some percentage analysis and cost analysis, so that you making decisions, you're going to make decisions about allocating funds in future budgets, you should have that information and it should be public. Thank you.
Any comments?
That's a good point, appreciate it.
Yeah, I think so, and I know that, I know we're trying to get the information out more ahead of the board meetings, but I think we also can have more online, previous minutes. Are they online? They haven't been on recently. They are, and what else is on?
The proposed minutes, everything that you get in the agenda is on the line. Says on the front page, the notice, the agenda, the packet, whatever you have, except for the stuff that just came in yesterday. I didn't get online today.
You might not be able to get it that quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, point well taken, and we'll see what we can do with that. And I think as much as we can get out to the public so that they know what's going on, the better. They may have questions and suggestions that we don't, that we're not aware of. So, thank you. Okay, anyone else that has any comments? Anyone in the audience? Okay, anything else from the board? Any comments? No?
Just wanted to point out the last item in your packet is the letter from Stoneman Gurkin just to inform the board of the status of the lawsuit.
Can you even estimate what that cost us? Ballpark and the whole deal?
That's the part I don't have any idea. I don't have that with me.
Did you ballpark a number? Yeah.
And did anyone have anything to add about that? And did you have anything you would like to add, comments on?
No, ma'am.
All right, if there are no other comments, nothing else to come before the board, we will stand adjourned and meet in September.
Again, if the vendor's away a few minutes, I'll have to check.